first thing we're gonna do, just like when we did peaches, we're gonna scald them so we can slip the skins off, and then we're gonna dice them up. And we've got a bunch of peppers and onions we picked from the garden. We've got garlic we grew. Everything we're making our sauce, the spaghetti sauce from this year, we grew in the garden. So we'll get some cold water in the sink here. We got our water boiling, and we're gonna scald our tomatoes and take the skins off and dice them up. And then we're gonna put them in a tub. You want to scald your tomatoes about 60 seconds. If you don't have a basket, you can use a slotted spoon, you can use a strainer. You got to be careful when you're scalding tomatoes or anything. If you don't scald it long enough, your skins aren't coming off. If you scald it too long, you're going to start cooking the meat inside, and it's going to get real mushy on you. So we'll see how this first batch does. These look pretty ripe. They've been in for 60 seconds. We'll take them out. I like using these strainer baskets. So we're going to let those cool. While those are cooling, we'll put another bunch in. Boy, those smell good. They smell really good. I can see the skins wrinkling on them, so I think we got the right time there. You can see here, when the skins wrinkle like that, they're gonna slip right off. So we're letting those cool down. We're going to put some more tomatoes in here. We've got a couple good varieties here that there are standby varieties every year in and year out. These are called Tappies. It's an old heirloom variety. They're excellent canning tomato, juice tomato. It's called Tappies, T-A-P-P-Y-S. It's a nice, they're very productive. They seem to hold up to droughts, wet weather. I mean, overall, they do really good every year, and they produce a lot of tomatoes, and they're really good tomatoes, good flavor, good acidity. The next one we use is striped Roman. That's another heirloom variety. These are very meaty. You can see how they get a nice striped color to them. Very meaty tomatoes, very few seeds. And the third one we use is called Rose. It's an Amish heirloom variety. These big pink ones are Rose. If you read about them, all the descriptions say the same thing. They rival Brandywine. Well, I think they're better than Brandywine. We plant both Brandywine and Rose every year just in case. You get weather conditions that change, you never know, but Rose is just, it's great for slicing, for sandwiches. It's good to add in with your tomato ketchup or juice or whatever you're doing. All we're going to do, you see these skins will come right off. When they're good and right and you scald them, they come right off. Now, unlike a peach, you don't have these. You can, but you're going to cut the core out, and then we're simply going to chunk them up. If you're having problems with your tomatoes, if the skin's slipping off, one thing, if I'm having a lot of problems with them coming off, what I'll do is I'll score them with a knife before I scald them. Sometimes it helps. But if you get a little bit of green on your tomato, that's where your skins aren't going to peel off. The skins peel off where the tomatoes are nice and ripe. That's another Rose. Watch when I cut this. There's hardly any seeds in this tomato. Just great. And it really helps thicken up your sauce or your ketchup, whatever you're making, and it really adds to the flavor. I like to use, just like blending cider, apple cider. Over the years, I've picked the tomatoes that just seem to have a nice blend. I don't like to use just one variety of tomato to make my spaghetti sauce or my ketchup. We like big chunks. You don't want to make your chunks too small, because as you cook this, the size of the chunks are going to reduce anyways from stirring and just cooking. They're going to, they're going to reduce naturally. We're going to turn this video off, and we're going to get them all done and diced up, and then we'll come back for the next step of making our spaghetti sauce. But usually what will happen is she'll skin them and throw them in here whole, and I'll get the cutting board out. It goes a lot faster, and you don't risk cutting your fingers or your hands. This is a sharp knife. This is striped Roman. I just wanted to show you how it looks on the inside. And it doesn't have much of a core at all. It's just a good tomato. So they will get these little spots on them, but it doesn't hurt anything. Some years they get them, some years they don't. It's a bacterial infection or something, but we don't spray any pesticides or chemicals on our vegetables. We'll put up with the blemishes. I don't care about that. Took that little bit of green off. Look at that. Now I'm going to cut this one open. This is striped Roman. Look how meaty that is. Few seeds on the outside. It's like a Roma, but they're bigger than a Roma, and in my opinion, they taste a lot better than a Roma. So instead of Romas for our spaghetti sauce and our ketchup, we use these. So striped Roman. Very good tomato. And as you can see, the size of them, it doesn't take many of them to fill a basket up or a tote. So we're going to finish all these and then we'll be back. Got all our tomatoes diced up. We've got our onions and peppers diced up here from the garden. We've got our cloves, our garlic cloves. Look at the size of these cloves. I want to show you that we grew this year. That's one garlic clove. It's not elephant garlic either. Some Italian variety, heirloom variety, a friend of my dad's gave him. And we've been planting it every year for about 3 years now. And every year we're doubling our crop. And these are really nice. So we got our garlic, we got all our seasonings right here. What we're going to do is we got olive oil heating up in the bottom of our pan. We're going to simmer our peppers and onions just until the onions turn glassy. So they go in first. They're going to go into the oil. And here we got that heated up. Now, as far as garlic goes, we're going to crush this garlic. We've got a little hand garlic press. It's really handy. Do not crush your garlic ahead of time. Garlic has an enzyme in it, or when you crush the cells in the garlic, it releases an enzyme. And I forget the name of it. It begins with an A. But it releases an enzyme in here that gets hot, just like horseradish. The longer it sits, the hotter it gets. It'll get so hot you can't eat it. So if you don't mind the heat, if you want heat in there, we always put a little bit of crushed red pepper from our garden in there anyways. So we just want the taste of the garlic. So just forewarned, if you're doing fresh garlic, if you're buying minced garlic in a jar and putting it in there, you're not going to have that issue. You're using fresh garlic, you want to wait until you get your stuff heating up before you put that in there. These are too big for a garlic smasher, or garlic press, so I'm actually going to cut them. The nice thing about these little garlic presses, you don't have to take those outer skins off. You just throw one in there, and you press it through. You can see the onions now are getting glassy. They're getting translucent. They're not white anymore. So now, we're going to dump our seasoning in. I'm not giving you my recipe. I've spent years tweaking this recipe. I'm just not going to give it out. It's just how I am. If you're really nice to me, maybe I wouldn't. Those are bay leaves. I'm taking them out just for a second because until they get softened up, they're going to be brittle. I'll just break them up. These will get pulled out. These 4 bay leaves will get pulled out before we can this. They're just going to simmer in there and season everything. So now we're mixing in our seasoning. Oh, that smells incredible. But anyways, you can go online, or if you got a book or you've got a family recipe, get your spaghetti recipe The purpose of this video is just making it and canning it. This isn't about the recipe. This is just about start to finish, prepping your tomatoes and everything, and cooking everything down and canning it. That's the purpose of this video. So getting this going, you see everything's. There's only 2 spices that we did not put. I'll just give you a little hint. There's sugar in here, brown sugar. There's of course oregano. There's some little bit of hot red pepper flakes, cayenne pepper flakes. We've got some ground fennel in here. I love fennel in anything Italian. Any type of sausage or spaghetti sauce, I just love fennel. You don't put a lot in there. People say, I don't like fennel, it tastes like licorice. Well, if you use it properly, you're never going to know what's in there, but it does enhance the flavor. The only things, there's 2 things that's going to go in this that's not in there now, and that's sweet basil and marjoram. You don't want to put them in at the beginning because it's a delicate flavor and it's going to cook right out of this. You'll never know what's in there at the end. When we get this to the consistency we want, we're getting ready to, just before we jar it, we're going to throw our sweet basil and our marjoram in there. That way you get that taste in the sauce. You put it in early, it won't last. It's going to cook right out. It's going to be overpowered by everything else. So now everything's bubbling good. Smells delicious. We're going to throw these back in there. About 4 bay leaves. And now we're going to put our tomatoes in there. So we'll put one bowl in. Now another thing we do on our tomatoes, okay, we put these in a tote while we were cutting them. And they're sitting there. Well, they juice up while they're sitting there. So when I measured these out, my recipe, this is a big batch. I think we're making 9 quarts. It takes 30 pounds of tomatoes to make the 9 quarts once it's cooked down. But what I did when I measured out my 30 pounds is I used a strainer, this right here. You can see what I do. I take it out like this. So most of the juice is still in here. Now it's still juiced up since I did that, but this is going to help save some time when it comes to cooking down. Now we're not going to waste this. We'll use this for juice or ketchup or something. We'll probably just, when we grind our tomatoes up for ketchup, we'll use it. It's not going to go to waste. But taking it out of this, it's going to save a little bit of time on cooking it down. So this is the rest of our tomatoes going, but you see they juiced up again because we've cut them. They're going to continue to juice up. There we go. So this is going to take a while to heat up now. We turned our burner up. There's a lot of stuff in here that's going to heat up. You do not want to put a lid on this. You want the moisture to evaporate. So do not put a lid on this or it's never going to evaporate. As you can see, there's a lot of liquid. And you're going to see, I guess we'll do some time lapses. We'll wait till this gets boiling. And then we're going to turn it down to simmer. And then we'll come back in about an hour and let you take a peek and see how we're doing. We brought it up to a boil. We're going to stir it a little bit, see how it's steaming, foaming up a little bit. Smells delicious. We're just going to turn our heat down a little bit. We do not, you don't want to scorch the bottom, and it will happen. Don't walk away, don't forget about this. You scorch the bottom, the whole batch will be ruined. You're going to get that burnt scorch flavor through everything. It's not going to disappear. So keep an eye on your sauce. Right now it's really soupy. Remember I was telling you about watching look how much water just drains off it. It just pours off the spoon. They're way too soupy. So keep that in mind. As we go through this, you're going to see that decrease. See how that steam and the exhaust fan is just pulling it right off the top. That's a lot of moisture coming off. You don't need a rolling boil. You do that, you're gonna have soup. Everything's gonna break down. So just let it simmer. You'll see here in a little bit. You'll see that it'll start bubbling up in the middle again. There it goes. Even though I turned my heat down, now it'll start simmering. And then we'll just keep coming back about every 20 minutes and give it a stir. It's been an hour now, and you can see we've gone down overall at least a ½ inch. So a couple more hours and we'll be ready to can. It's been an hour now. See how it's bubbling nice at the top? All your liquid comes at the top, but what's happening is everything else is going to the bottom. This is where you got to be careful. This is where you can scorch, or even worse, burn your spaghetti sauce. So now, I told you before, about every 20 minutes. Now you want to come over here and stir this about every 10 to 15 minutes. You want to keep this stirred up, because as this boils, you'll see when I stop stirring it, you'll see the bubbles rise to the top, and all the solids are going to start slowly sinking back down to the bottom now, and all your moisture is going to be on top. That's when you're at risk for scorching or burning your sauce. So you see how quick that settles down. You see all the steam coming off this area. So about every 10 to 15 minutes, probably no more than every 10, no longer than 10 minutes. I'm working here in the kitchen. I'll just stay here and I'll keep coming over here. I'll just keep scraping my sides. You can see there's one of our bay leaves. See how it's gotten soft now? It's rehydrated. We'll pick them out towards the end. So we'll check back in another hour and see how it looks. So it's been 2 hours now. If you remember, we started just above this rivet up here. The handle is. We've gone down about 2 inches. Now I don't know if you can hear this, but look at the bubbles in this and listen to it. Now listen when I stir it. You can hear it's continuing to bubble, but you can see, watch how it bubbles up through this now. And more importantly, watch what happens if you remember when I took a spoon of this out earlier, an hour ago, quite a bit of liquid running from the spoon. Now watch. You're just getting a few drips. Now, this is all preference. If you like it runnier than this, can it earlier than this. If you want it thicker than this, can it thicker. But this is about right here. It's going to continue to thicken up a little bit while we can it. But when I can pull a spoon up, you see it's running just a little bit yet. What I'm going to do now, we're going to add our basil and our marjoram, because we're about ready to can this. Remember I said you want to put this in at the end, not at the beginning, because the delicate flavor of basil and marjoram, if you cook it at the beginning, you're going to lose that flavor. So you're better off put it in right now. Listen to that distinct sound. It's almost like lava. It's the way to describe it. It's getting nice and thick. You can see even here. You see there's no water sitting there. You can tell it's more of a, you can tell it's thick. Still got, and now it gets critical. Like I said, you see how much steam's still coming off. Every minute that goes by now just exponentially gets drier. So we're going to get our jars ready here. This makes about 9 quarts. Based on what we do every time and how thick we want it, it gives us about 9 quarts per batch. We use this for spaghetti. We use it for lasagna. Emmy just made, we had a nice bumper crop of eggplant this year. And a friend of ours made eggplant lasagna. And I told my wife, Emmy, I says, we need to make that. It's really good. She found a recipe. Maybe she'll share it with you sometime. But I told her, this was just yesterday, 2 days ago. I told Emmy, I said, we don't need regular lasagna anymore. We don't need pasta noodles. That eggplant lasagna is fantastic. So You want to try something new. If you like lasagna and you don't want the pasta, look up eggplant lasagna. Outstanding. We're going to put 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in the bottom of each jar. Citric acid preserves the color, and some tomatoes are not as acidic as others. Depend on that acidity in the food for the preservation. So to ensure we have enough acid in here to preserve the color and the flavor, we're putting 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in every quart. So I'm going to turn our heat down. One more thing, I almost forgot. We can take these out. I just saw one, it reminded me. Take your bay leaves out. Every time we do this, we're going to stir it good. Get everything mixed up. We'll go within 1 inch to the top of the lid. 1 inch is right to this bottom rim right here. Most of our rims are clean. We didn't get anything on them, but I'm still going to go around and check them. Jars are nice and hot. Just snug. Don't bear down on them, just snug. You need to give them room to breathe in the hot water while they're cooking. Now, if you were doing open kettle, you can definitely snug them down. But if you are pressure canning or hot water bath, just snug. These will go in a hot water bath. We'll start timing it when the water starts to bubble, 35 minutes. We're using our big canner, which holds 18 quarts. It holds 9 on the bottom. So we'll fill a smaller pot up with water to do the other 2.5 quarts. Usually we only get 9 quarts, but if you'll notice, or if you go back to the beginning of the video, I kept some of the water out. I used a strain. I don't normally do that, it just occurred to me. Cut down on your cooking time, get that water out of there. So we used a strainer and got our tomatoes out. We didn't dump that water in, so we didn't spend, that would have been more volume in the pot, and we would have spent probably another hour cooking it down. So we started cooking this, heating the oil, cooking the onions and peppers and the spices. We started at 3 o'clock. We're getting ready to put these in the pot now, and it's 5 minutes till 6, so 3 hours total time on that, not including getting our tomatoes ready. So now we're going to put them in our hot water bath. We're going to set these down in our hot water bath. We've got a rack on the bottom. You don't ever want to put your jars directly on the bottom of a pot because they're going to vibrate and jiggle because the water is going to boil. Well, you put those jars against this this hard bottom surface directly on it in hot water bath, you're going to get broken jars. So it's got a rack. Those racks come with these. You buy any type of a hot water bath can or anything like that, they're going to have racks in them. You don't, if you're using a regular pot, find something you can put in the bottom. So there we've got 9 jars in this. You don't want them touching. You want them just kind of separate them evenly. You want at least 1 inch of water over top your jars. We've got a couple inches, so we're good on that. But you'll notice I'm just kind of make sure they each got a little bit of space so they're not vibrating or banging against each other. You don't want to bring this to a rolling boil. We've got the heat up so it'll start bubbling. So we got this pot here because we didn't have enough room there, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. So you got a regular stock pot. I've got this little, all it is a little cooling rack. A little round cooling rack, and it just so happens to fit perfectly in this. So this is your cushion between the bottom and your jars. And that goes right in there real nice. And we're going to need to add some water on this one. Like I said, you need an inch of water over top of these. So when these start to boil, bubble, we will time them for 35 minutes. At the end of 35 minutes, we'll shut them off. I prefer to leave them in there and let them cool down overnight. It'll take us till 9. We haven't even chopped our vegetables and stuff up for a second batch, so we're probably going to get everything prepped and we'll do it first thing in the morning. So when these are done, we'll shut these off and let them cool down. In the morning, we'll do the second batch. We start that at 6. We'll be done by 4 hours. We'll be done by 10. So we can let them cool down tomorrow. So that's that.
Hey.